Sorry that break took a little longer than expected. We just needed to get all the players back in place before we started. So, Mr. Mulligan, you may continue your examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. I direct your attention to State's Exhibit 27, and can you identify what's depicted in that picture?
This is a photograph of the front door of the home where the incident took place. We put a yellow yardstick in to show the damage, to kind of give a size representation of the damage. Again, that's a photograph of the handle locking mechanism and the damage that was to the edge of the doorway.
I show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 151. Would you come over and look at this, please?
Yes, sir.
Hold it up if you'll take a look at it.
Oh, yeah.
This appears to be the same door that was on the front of the home at the time of the incident.
Okay, so the State's Exhibit 151 is the door that is depicted in State's Exhibit 27. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is the door that you, well, get around the other side of the door. There appears to be some gray or black discoloration on the front. Do you know what that is?
This is the materials that we applied to the door to develop and label fingerprints.
Thank you. Have your seat.
Body photos right at the end.
And I'll show you State 77. I don't see any of your evidence stickers in there or locators. So this must be the scene prior to your examination of it, prior to your processing of it.
Is this another one of the photographs that they pieced?
Yeah, compilation.
Compilation. More than likely, this was probably taken from photographs that we take a lot of times when I'm teaching a new agent, or whenever we go to scenes. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll stand in a corner and we'll take a photograph and we'll pan across. I don't know if they use those photographs to construct that, but that's a true and accurate representation of what we saw at the scene when we first arrived with the victim in the left-hand corner there, and then the evidence.
And there's a purple wall hanging. I use that as my reference mark. To the right of that purple wall hanging is a closet, and that's the closet where the tooth and the casing were found.
Yes, sir.
And then to the left of that purple wall hanging is the body of Amy Ross.
Yes, sir.
And that is where you found it when you first came into the scene.
Yes, sir.
I'll show you what is marked as States 25.
That's a photograph of the stairway, and it's taken from the top of the stairs and pointed down, and it depicts a number of maybe drip stains of blood, and it also shows where blood or suspected blood was transferred from an item, either a foot or a shoe, onto the stairway going down.
It also depicts that some of the paint on the stairway has been chipped away, so there's blood and chipped paint that we're seeing in that picture, correct?
Correct, sir.
States 14.
This is a photograph of the exterior of the home. The home is actually to the right of the photograph. You see a Pontiac, I believe it was a G6, parked to the left of a silver or light-colored Buick in front of the garage door. The crime scene vehicle is obscuring where the white Chevy pickup truck was parked.
The crime scene vehicle is your vehicle?
It's either mine or Chris Hamburg's.
And I see there's like a yellow tape, would that be like a crime scene tape? And does this area show where the bullet would have been looked for from a bullet hole N in that window?
It does. It does. If you imagine the area slightly in front of the darker colored car, the Pontiac, and then to the left there in front of the garage is where we look for the bullet hole at, or the bullet, fire bullet at.
Page 18.
This is a photograph of an area of suspected blood on the front of the white pickup truck that was located in the driveway. That was marked with placard B.
Page 29.
This is a photograph of the kitchen on the first floor of the home.
I'm going to bring the stage 29 over to you. Ask you if you, does that appear to be a Subway sandwich or a wrapper from a Subway sandwich on the table?
Yeah, if memory serves me correct, there was a small portion of a sandwich that was inside the wrapper still that hadn't been consumed.
Page 20.
This is a photograph of one of the rooms on the first floor. It looks like it was either being used for storage or boxes were being moved into the room.
And stage 22, the same? Storage and...
Yeah, it looks like a lot of furniture for such a small room, like things have been moved in.
Those are actually two couches facing each other. You really couldn't sit in the couches, could you?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, when you arrived there, Amy Ross's body was still there, and Amy Ross's body was part of that crime scene investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
You photographed her body. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm about to show you some of those. So. Okay, we'll start with this one. State's Exhibit 84.
This is a photograph of Amy Ross's torso. She was found laying on her back. She had a green sweatshirt, hooded sweatshirt. Had kind of a logo of like I think it was maybe a restaurant or a tackle shop, kind of fish, I guess a tackle box. In this photograph, what you're seeing is a saturation of blood right around the area of the chest bone, between the breast areas. And that's where an accumulation of blood would have pooled in that fabric.
State's Exhibit 86 appears to be a closer view of that same area of Amy's body, and there's a red triangular shaped marker in there. What does that depict?
That's depicting the bullet hole in her shirt, where the bullet passed through the sweatshirt and into her body.
So is this, did you pull the sweatshirt back over her then? Had it been removed for medical purposes or shoved up, or what can you tell us about that?
That's how we found it. I think there's probably a pretty good chance that the medical EMTs manipulated that sweatshirt in one way or another. I know that there were leads and stickers on her body to monitor her heart. I believe that they started an IV and started an airway for her. So at some point they likely manipulated that shirt and moved it around.
State's Exhibit 85. There's a picture here of legs, of shoes, and a tag that says L.
L is the placard that we used to mark Amy Ross's location. This photograph just depicts the condition of her pants and of her shoes.
State's 87. What is depicted in that exhibit?
This is a photograph of her abdomen area. You know, shows that her shirt was slightly up. You see some of the saturation of blood that has accumulated in the shirt material, and you see some of the blood that has, accumulated onto her abdomen and then flowed off to her left side, which would be to our right.
State's Exhibit 88.
This is a photograph of the bullet wound into Amy Ross's chest. We had to, pull the shirt down to expose the injury area.
Lost track. I'm not sure that we went over this one. This is State's 87. Have we seen that one yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 83. Tell us what's depicted in that picture.
This is a photograph of Amy Ross. Obviously, we pulled her shirt upwards to get kind of a idea of where that injury is in relationship to her body. It shows some saturation staining in the area of her left breast and bra, and then within her shirt.
And some medical apparatus that was there, obviously, from the EMTs that came.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 83 through 88 inclusive. And I want you to look at them in person, as it were. And pay particular note to the blood patterns, spatter, and so forth on those exhibits, and then I'll have a couple of questions for you about them. Okay, so you have close-up photos of the shoes, the pants, her hands, her arms. What, if anything, can you derive from those photos, and what is your opinion with regard to the patterns of the blood patterns that you see in those photos?
One of the things that we do at the scene is to look at all possibilities. We take in information from the investigators and the deputies, but One of the things that I do and one of the things that I instruct the younger agencies is to accept that information, but also accept it that it could be wrong or it could be false. So as Special Agent Chris Hamburg and I examined the body of Amy Ross, one of the things that we wanted to know was, could she be close to Randall Ross when a gunshot went off, or a gunshot went off. And one of the things that we did was to look at her hands, to look at her arms, her exposed arms, to look at her sweatshirt, to look at the front of her pants, to look at her shoes. One of the telling things about clothing is that if you're in close proximity to someone, when you fire a weapon into them, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to get blood spatter back on your clothing. That chance goes up exponentially when there's one bullet that passes through someone, they begin to bleed, and then a second bullet goes into that person. Anytime that there's a standing pool of blood exposed to the air, and then there's another violent encounter, that spatter that's created by that is just incredible. It's a good amount. So as we examined Amy Ross, the blood that I see from her, in my opinion, is from that bullet wound into her chest, and that it exited somewhere in her back. And that blood begins to accumulate in her bra, and it begins to accumulate in her sweatshirt. There's an area of her left shirt sleeve cuff that also has blood in it. And if you look at State's Exhibit 83, I think what happens is the blood from the back that's pooling out onto the floor begins to accumulate both in her pants and in her underwear and in that shirt sleeve. But it's big and it's an accumulation of blood. So one thing that I had to wrestle with was Amy Ross very close to Randall Ross when he suffered his injuries? What I didn't see was I didn't see spatter on her hands. I didn't see spatter on her shirt sleeves. I didn't see spatter patterns on the front of her sweatshirt. I didn't see spatter on her pants. I didn't see spatter on her shoes. And if you think back to the large pool of blood on the floor, which I believe that we marked with Q, when you stand close to someone and there's a bullet wound into them and they begin to drop that blood onto the floor, what happens is that blood drops into itself and it creates satellite spatter, which will move onto your shoes and onto your clothing. So one of the things that looking at her person and at her clothing, Special Agent Hamburg and I walked away from the scene with the opinion that she wasn't close to Randall Ross at the time of the bloodshed event that he suffered.
State's Exhibit 89, a close-up of the entrance wound.
Yes, sir.
And the ruler on the wound would place that wound on her body for you. Was that?
It just gives us a size representation of the actual hole in her chest.
Okay. I think State's Exhibit 90 shows the sweatshirt she was wearing. I think it says tackle box on it.
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 92
That's
Okay.
good.
What does that depict?
That's the injury to her back.
So that's where the bullet exited her body.
Correct.
This would be a longer view of the exit wound from her body.
Correct.
And the pictures you've seen accurately portray the scene as you observed them on that day?
I do.
What was the last number? 91. And I'm sorry, I don't think I identified the last picture I showed you. Let me put it up again. Is that State's Exhibit 91?
It is.
At this time, I move for the introduction of my exhibits with regard to this witness.
No objection, Liz. Admitted.
Okay. That would include the duplicate and blow up of State's Exhibit 140 and the door, State's Exhibit 151.
We've stipulated the chain of custody as it relates to the door also, Your Honor.
So admitted.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
No cross-examination of this witness. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd ask that the witness be excused, Your Honor.
You are excused.
State's next witness.
Randall, State calls Matthew White.
Mr. White, can you come around this way, please?
You raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and you shall answer unto God.
I do.
Good morning, Mr. White. Could you please state your name?
My name is Matthew White.
How are you employed?
I'm employed at the Bureau of Criminal Identification, or BCI, in London, Ohio, as a firearm and tool mark examiner in their forensic laboratory.
How long have you had that position?
I've been employed at BCI for approximately 8 years.
Okay, what kind of training did you go through to obtain that position?
My specialized training, I have a bachelor's degree in biological sciences with a minor in chemistry and history. For the specialized training, I completed a 2-year training program under the senior examiners, as well as an additional year of training with the ATF, known as the National Firearm and Examiner Academy. I've visited and reviewed approximately 18 different firearm and ammunition manufacturers, seeing firsthand how firearms are assembled and manufactured and produced. I'm a member of the Association of Firearm and Tool Mark Examiners and currently work cases on a full-time basis in London, Ohio.
Thank you. I'm handing defense what's remarked as State's Exhibit 133.
Judge, we would stipulate to the qualifications of Mr. White.
Thank you. For purposes of the jury, when the attorneys stipulate to qualifications, that means that they agree that the person on the stand is appropriate to make opinion type of statements regarding their observations. Those opinions can be cross-examined, but they agree that they are allowed to make opinions.
I just asked a little question about Mr. White, that's a copy of your CV, State's Exhibit 133.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And you've qualified as an expert in firearms before?
Yes, I've qualified as an expert approximately 75 times in the state of Ohio and West Virginia.
Okay. Are you familiar with the case of Randall Ross?
Yes, sir, I am.
And how are you familiar with that case?
I'm familiar with the case because there were items of evidence that were submitted to the laboratory for examination purposes.
Okay, what items were submitted to the laboratory?
I was submitted a pistol as well as fired cartridge cases and a lead bullet core, I believe.
Okay, when you talk about fired cartridges, what is that?
When we look at ammunition consists of the case, the bullet, the powder inside of the cartridge case, and a primer. When a firearm fires, the firing pin will strike the primer on the end of the cartridge, the gunpowder will burn, and the gases produced will then expel the bullet out the barrel. As a result of the firing process, the pressure generated, the cartridge case that contains those items expands and impacts into the firearm itself. Unique characteristics that are imparted to the firearm during the manufacturing process are then left onto that fired cartridge case. And it's those characteristics that I can look at in an attempt to determine whether or not they had been fired from a particular firearm or not.
Okay. So in this case, when you received the evidence, what were you looking for?
When I received the evidence, I examined the fired cartridge cases. I then examined the firearm. I took the firearm, I test fired it so that I could have known test fires that I know were fired from that gun. The firearm, when I test fired it, it showed that the firearm was operable. I then performed a microscopic comparison of my known test fires to the submitted evidence fired cartridge cases in an attempt to determine whether microscopically I could show the evidence cartridge cases were indeed fired in the submitted pistol.
And what did you find with respect to the cartridge casings?
I was able to conclude that all of the fired cartridge cases that were submitted had been fired in the submitted pistol.
And what did you find that backed up that conclusion you made?
Based on the unique characteristics that the firearm left on the known test fires that I took with the firearm, that microscopic comparison, looking at those characteristics between my test fires and the evidence cartridge cases to show those characteristics reproduced over onto the evidence. That's what I utilized for a basis for being able to say the fired cartridge cases have been fired in the submitted pistol.
Okay. So you determined that the firearm was operable and that the casings of the scene were left from the gun. What else did you determine?
I was submitted a lead bullet core from a jacketed bullet.
And what findings did you make with respect to that object?
Typically, a bullet consists of a jacket, usually copper or brass, with a lead inner core. Sometimes this jacket and lead core can separate if it becomes damaged. And what I had was the actual lead core itself. When the bullet goes down the barrel, it engages in the rifling of the barrel. The rifling causes the bullet to spin and allows the bullet to be stable in flight. As a result, that rifling cut into the bullet itself, but it usually cuts into the copper or the outer jacket material. Since that jacket material was not present, it was just the lead core inside of it, unique characteristics were not present. But the general impression of the rifling was still on the lead, and I could determine that those impressions were similar to the submitted pistol. However, I could not identify it specifically as being fired from that pistol.
Were you able to identify what caliber of bullet that was?
The lead core was consistent with a .40 caliber bullets.
I'm going to ask you to put on some gloves. Okay, Mr. White, I am handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 13. It's a box. If you could open the box.
State's Exhibit 13 corresponds to my item number 3. You'll see the unique laboratory identification sticker on the side, also indicating it is my item number 3.
So you've seen this box before?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. And what do you find in the box?
Firearm is unloaded and in a safe condition. This is a Ruger model P94 pistol. I can identify it by the Sharpie of the item number, the laboratory number, and my initial on the side of the slide. Thank you. You'll see on the side of the slide.
And is that the gun that you testified about earlier that you test fired?
Yes, during my examination, I test fired the submitted pistol, and I was able to conclude the test fires. This top area is referred to as the slide, and if you'll look at the opening area here, there's a small hole. That's where the firing pin comes through to contact the cartridge in order to fire it. And this flat area that the cartridge sets up against right here, it's that area during the firing process, as the pressure is generated, the cartridge case sets back very hard against this area. And it was that area that I could look at microscopically and be able to determine that the submitted fired cartridge cases were fired in this specific pistol.
Okay, what else was submitted to you that is in the box?
I was submitted one magazine with the pistol. Again, you can see the identifying Sharpie marks on the side of it. There was one fired cartridge case also submitted. There were 6 loaded cartridges. And this particular envelope contains my known test fires that I took with the submitted pistol.
So to be clear, the known test fires casings corresponded to the casing that was submitted to you from the scene?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And the 6 bullets you testified about, those were bullets and casing together? They're the rounds that hadn't been fired that were at the scene in the magazine?
When I refer to a loaded cartridge, also referred to as ammunition, again, you'll see the cartridge case, the bullet at the end. These specific cartridges are 40 Smith & Wesson, refers to that specific cartridge. The submitted firearm is chambered to shoot 40 Smith & Wesson cartridges.
Okay, thank you. No further questions?
No questions of this witness. Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you very much. Free to go?
Could we have about 10 minutes, Your Honor?
Sir?
Thank you.
Come back about 11 o'clock. Step out there.